Gentleman from the 97th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was very encouraged to hear the desire on the part of, let's see, is it the 54th, my colleague from the 54th, the desire to make Wisconsin attractive, Mr. Speaker. I was delighted to hear that. And I think that's something that we can put our heads together and work on, because that's an important goal. When I've looked at it, I've noticed a general trend that the states that are growing the fastest in this nation are the states with no income tax. That might be a good model for us to follow in the state of Wisconsin. But that, of course, is not the topic of this bill, so perhaps we can come back to that another day. You know, inflation is when there are too many dollars chasing too few goods and services. And I don't know about you, but I have a fear that inflation, real inflation, is on the horizon. We saw the fiscal estimate that the good news that we got this week from the Fiscal Bureau, and it referenced some market data and had a projection for inflation. I think those are conservative projections. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But so let's just break that down into its component parts, the too many dollars. When you have federal stimulus bill after federal stimulus bill after federal stimulus bill piled on top of a Fed monetary policy that has allowed for the increase in the supply of money, you get too many dollars. In fact, if you look at the Fed data, there's more money in circulation now, right now, than at any time in our United States history. There's a lot of money out in circulation right now. A lot. That's too many dollars. Now, it wouldn't be too many dollars if there were sufficient supply of goods and services. In other words, if our production was able to keep up. But our production is not able to keep up because we have a labor shortage. The labor shortage doesn't exist just here in the state of Wisconsin. It exists across the entire country. If you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports, you'll see that as of March of 2021, the United States had over 9 million unfilled jobs. That number is the highest in the history of the United States. 9 million unfilled jobs. Well, it's the people who are working that are responsible for production. Like, goods just don't make themselves. Goods have to be assembled, and they have to be packaged, and they have to be shipped. Or even on the service side, we heard a couple of stories about the home health care industry and other industries where it's human services, or even the retail or hospitality industries. These are services. And if there aren't enough people to make the food and deliver the food and provide the care, that's too little production. It's really elementary. So how long will this situation continue? Yes, some people have pointed out that we had pre-pandemic labor force shortages. That's true. And the pandemic certainly exacerbated that problem. Now, when the current unemployment supplement was put in place, the pandemic was largely a moving target. Nobody could have, back in January, nobody could have foretold when we'd be coming close to the end of this, what the numbers would be like in May or June. Nobody could have looked in their crystal ball and been able to forecast that accurately. So I'm going to give the lawmakers in Washington, D.C. the benefit of the doubt. I rarely do that, by the way. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, you know, they were picking a date in the future by which they had a hunch that we'd be mostly through the pandemic and would be an appropriate time to end these supplemental unemployment insurance. So they picked September. I don't know if I could have picked a better date, but they picked a date. So now what the debate today is about is, when is the right date? We've got a little bit more of an idea of what's going on with the pandemic now than we had back then. I don't think this has to be a vitriolic debate. It doesn't have to be a debate, about Republicans versus Democrats, about, I mean, we don't have to go down that road. We really don't. We can just have an intelligent conversation about, well, what would be a good date to do this? And I think this bill says, well, now is a good time. And I kind of get that sense when I have employers contacting me. I've talked just this last week with Tony and Gordy. And they're both in the service industry. They own businesses in the service industry. And they're talking about having to reduce their hours of operation. They're talking about, to me about, Gordy had to close his business one day a week. We've heard those stories already. And they're very frustrated. You heard the exacerbation in the voice of another business owner, one of our colleagues here today, talking about how they're working around the clock to service their customers, to meet the demand. But I want you to think not just from the perspective of the business owners. I want you to think about it from the perspective of the workers who are working in those places. The stress level right now is the highest it's ever been. The anxiety, the pressure. They know that they're short-staffed. They know that the pressure to meet the demand is great. They're working extra hard. And it's not fair to them. It's just not fair that they are putting in long hours and stressful hours and having, I see it in the eyes. My wife and my daughter and I, we went out for brunch for Mother's Day. My daughter was out of town on Mother's Day, so we got together a week or so after that. And my daughter works in the hospitality industry, and she pointed out, she says, look at their eyes. Because we went to this restaurant for brunch, and she said, look at their eyes. And I started looking at their eyes. Hadn't even noticed. She said, look at their eyes. She said, they're all stressed. And they were. You could tell that they were too thinly staffed. And obviously the service that we got that day was not good. Food was good. People were friendly. But there's only so much they can do. And they were stressed. And this is what we're putting the workers through right now. And it's not fair to them because they're doing their best to meet the demand while others are sitting at home getting bonus checks and not being stressed. One expression from early last year was that we're all in this together. Well, how about when we come out of this? Shouldn't we all be in this together? That means all hands need to be on deck. And the reality is that if we don't meet the demand for products and services across the board, if we don't meet the demand, we are going to see rapid inflation. It's just textbook definition of inflation. And that hurts everybody. Inflation doesn't discriminate based upon class. It hurts everybody. So I'm not doing this for political reasons. I think this is the right time for us to be making modifications to our unemployment insurance policy. The time is now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jim.